NJ Lindquist, and we've set up a camera in our living room so that I could help you just get a feel for the book, A Second Cup of Hot Apple Cider, by reading you some of the excerpts and give you a little taste of what A Second Cup of Hot Apple Cider is all about. First of all, I just want to mention that I am the publisher and co-editor of this book, and I didn't do it alone. I want to mention two people who have been involved from the beginning. The first is my husband, Les, who is a co-publisher with me, and our company is called That's Life Communications. And the second person is the co-editor of the book, and her name is Wendy Elaine Nellis, and hopefully we'll get her on video soon too. So what I want to do is read you some excerpts. Now the problem is there are 51 different pieces in A Second Cup of Hot Apple Cider, and I would love to read you all of them, but I can't. So I'm going to go through and choose a few that I think might interest you, that you might relate to. I tried to choose some that I think a lot of people will identify with. The first one is the very first story in the book. It's called The Bulletin Board. It's a true story, and it's written by Adele Simmons. I'm standing in a corridor near the bulletin board where marks are posted. It's January, and I'm a psychology major, minoring in biology. Sheets of paper cover the long cork bulletin board. The page I want is Developmental Psychology 201. Dr. Miller is the prof. He's good. He isn't just book smart, he's people smart. He bridges the gap of knowledge by checking where we are in our comprehension and taking us step by clear step to his point. He explains thoroughly and has high expectations of us. I should ace the course. I'm an honors student, but I've had some challenges lately. Students crowd the hall. There is my name, down with the S's. I get a C. Humiliating. My friend Jan, who got an A, wraps a comforting arm around my shoulders. She makes no fuss, but encourages me. You'll pull it back. He has no idea. Dr. Miller notices us in the hall later that day as Jan and I walk to class. He pauses, then approaches us, his head tipped with intent. He closes in with quick, short strides. Nice work, he says to Jan. Dr. Miller turns to me, leans closer and peers into my ashen face. He pokes the books in my arms with a stubby finger and spits his words, "Next time, study." Quiet tears blur my vision as Jan and I continue down the hall. She knows all, but I can't tell him how my time has been spent over the last several weeks. My days have been consumed with helping my scared little sister settle in Calgary in the Salvation Army home for unwed mothers. Lost, One Green Scarf. Another true story by Vilma Blenman. I definitely left it with my coat, but it's definitely not there when I go to leave. I shake out the coat sleeves, look under the rack with its one remaining jacket, and check behind my boots. At the suggestion of one of my group members, I retrace my steps to the large meeting room where we had just finished 3 hours of volunteer facilitator training. I know it won't be here. I had chosen not to wear it into the room, but I check anyhow. No scarf. A familiar emotion sweeps over me. It's the fear that begins in the lower entrails and moves swiftly up to the rib cage, then upward to the throat, tightening its grip as it climbs. It's the fear that something significant that was will be no more. Something vital to me is lost. Just leave, I tell myself. Just get going. It's only a scarf, for heaven's sake. True. It's only a scarf. A green floral scarf I was beginning to build a loving, fragrant relationship with, fingering its black-brown veins and the laughing hanging tassels. Now it's just one lost green scarf. After 5 more minutes of searching, I step briskly to the sidewalk on Madison Avenue in downtown Toronto. I walk quickly towards the Spadina Avenue subway station, clutching my naked throat. Without intending to, I begin to notice people's scarves, some dark, some brightly colored, some woolen, some cotton, all deftly knotted at the nape, complementing coats, shielding owners from cold. Deja vu, grief whispers. Didn't you notice every mother with a baby after you buried each of your own babies? Didn't you hear your baby's cries and the cry of every child for a year or more after your babies were silent? My Mother's Gift, a true story from Anne Brent. The first day of school was one of my favorite days of the year. I loved orange-yellow HB pencils with soft rose-colored erasers. I loved the smell that wafted out of a brand new box of crayons with their perfect chiseled tips. And I loved the empty, lined pages of my notebooks that would soon capture my thoughts in writing. The only thing I dreaded about that day was the first half hour when my new teacher would read the class list aloud and demand information I simply didn't have. The roll call began. When Violet Ann rang out across the classroom, I acknowledged my presence, and the questions started. Privacy rules were non-existent in the 1960s, making each detail of pertinent information public to the whole class. Unusual names brought snickers. One of my answers inspired confused whispers every year. Mother's name? Asked the teacher. Joyce, I responded. Father's name? I don't have one, I answered quietly, providing the answer I dreaded giving. Two-parent families were still the norm in the early 60s, so my response always drew stares from my curious classmates. It was bad enough to say it once, but my grade 3 teacher persevered. Violet, what is your father's name? Later, I would explain that I preferred Anne to Violet. But first, I had to convince her that I really didn't have a father. At least, no father I knew anything about. Live Life to the Full, a True Story by Evangeline Inman. I woke up Tuesday morning after a good night's rest, feeling the familiar warmth of my two children snuggled in close to me. 5-year-old Markel and 3-year-old Jared always seemed to find their way to our bed at some point during the night. I cuddled them both closer to me, then kissed their foreheads. Jared's little head felt unusually hot. I quickly got up and took his temperature. I was shocked to see how high it was. I immediately called our family doctor and then our pediatrician. We had just returned from extensive testing at the Children's Hospital, where they'd informed us that Jared's health was great. 2 years earlier, he'd undergone a bone marrow transplant, and his life expectancy was now considered normal. The pediatrician assured me that a bug was going around and lots of kids were running unusually high fevers. I took cold, wet towels and placed them on Jared's forehead. A short time later, his fever had gone down and seemed to be under control. I was relieved that he appeared to be doing better. It's probably just the flu, I thought. That evening, when my husband came home from work, Jared was propped up on pillows watching Barney's children's video in the master bedroom. I left to make a quick trip to the store to buy Jared some frozen popsicles and ice cream to help keep his fever down. As I pulled into the driveway after returning home, even before I had a chance to get out of the van, Markel ran up to me shouting, "Daddy took Jared to the hospital, and he said for you to come right away." My heart began to pound. What possibly could have happened that Mark would leave our 5-year-old daughter outside playing with her friends? Maybe Jared's temperature has risen. On Being Still and Knowing, a True Story by Glynis N. Belloc. The news is not good, Dr. Norman said. My temples pulsated and I chastised myself for telling my husband Giles not to bother coming. I'll be fine, I'd said to my hubby, unaware of the black cloud drifting overhead. That lumpy area is probably just my uterus doing a flip-flop because this old gray mare ain't what she used to be. We'd laughed, and he'd leaned over to kiss me. I'd clicked my seatbelt and headed for the medical center. Dr. Norman touched my trembling hand. It's cancer, she said, ovarian cancer. A kaleidoscope of emotions whirred in my brain. Then a dull thump resonated somewhere deep inside. Cancer? What do you mean I have cancer? Other people get cancer, not me. I barely get a cold. I don't even get a headache unless I'm hungry. So this is a joke, right? My physician saw the confused look on my face and assured me the test left no doubt. I had ovarian cancer, and the clock was ticking. I couldn't make out much of what my sweet doctor said after that. Her lips moved, my ears heard, but my brain didn't register anything except some sporadic words: CAT scan, surgery, oncologist, cancer clinic, bone scan. I suddenly felt as if I'd been thrust into the lead role in a play, but no one had given me the script. I'd no opportunity for rehearsal. The spotlight was beaming down on me as I stood center stage, agape and alone. The audience was staring back at me in anticipation, but I had no idea what my lines should be. I don't remember driving the short distance home, but I do recall falling into Giles's arms, tears flowing, and telling my husband of 30 years that our life together was about to change forever. What do I want to be when I grow up? A True Story by Lindquist. What do you want to be when you grow up? For generations, adults have asked kids that question. But these days, as more and more people change jobs frequently or retire in their 50s, adults are now asking themselves the same question. In the 2 years since I retired from a 35-year career with multinational corporation IBM, I've frequently asked myself, so what do I want to be when I grow up? The truth is, before leaving my job, I hadn't been happy for a couple of years. I struggled with the purpose behind what I was doing. My own specialty was change management, but I found that I was becoming the establishment that I had set out to transform. I knew it was time I made a change, but I was comfortable. I liked the people I worked with, I enjoyed some of the work, and I was well paid. However, I knew the company was downsizing its workforce all over the world, and that anyone in a high-paying staff job was a prime target. I even mentioned to a colleague that the writing was on the wall for me. So when I got the call that Tuesday morning, I was somewhat prepared. Your department is being cut in half. You'll need to find another position in the company, or we can offer you an early retirement package. To my surprise, my primary reaction to the phone call was a huge sense of relief. I was free from the long, boring meetings that went nowhere, from back-to-back conference calls all day long, from training people who didn't want to be trained. All of the things that I'd begun to find frustrating and meaningless. My immediate decision was easy. I had no desire to look for another job within the company, and I knew in my heart it was time to leave. At the same time, I was only 57 years old, and while I might be retiring from IBM, I had no intention of actually retiring. Bannock and Sweet Tea, fiction based on true stories, by M.D. Meyer. 1957. The dough is soft and pliable, absorbing warmth from my hands as I gently mold and shape it. It is my work, but my pleasure, anticipating the smiles of my children, knowing their tummies will be full and their hearts satisfied. The door opens and they burst in, laughing, scolding, and teasing, each wanting to tell me a bit of what they have discovered about the world, themselves, or each other. I listen to each one as I serve bannock and sweet tea. Mary, my firstborn, says the others wouldn't listen when called. Jessie ran to pick flowers. Tommy climbed up a big rock and fell. Jessie smiles as she hands me buttercups, honeysuckle, and daisies. Tommy manfully frowns as I bandage his knees. My husband, John, stops in with a grin, a string of fish held proudly in his hand, saying, "I'll clean them later." He lays them on a newspaper and sits with our children to listen to their chatter. Then he winks at me and suggests it's our turn to go for a walk in the cool fall air, my favorite time of the year. John's mom, who lives next door, watches over our little ones. We know they are safe and content and will be spoiled just a bit. So we walk and talk and dream with each other of our future together, of the new little one in my womb, and our young family growing day by day. A plane flies low overhead and we look up in awe. It's still a strange sight for us when they pass by, and this one looks as if it will land quite near. We idly wonder what it's all about. Some visiting missionary perhaps, or a tourist wanting a guide to the best fishing spots. We clasp hands and run back to join in the excitement. As we come in view of our house and our neighbors, the plane roars again overhead as the crowd below gazes skyward. People are crying and clutching each other. I don't see my children, and I run inside. My mother-in-law lies on the floor, wailing in grief. Tommy hides in a corner, trembling in fear. Mary and Jessie are gone. The Wheels on the Bus Go Round, a poem by Angelina Fast-Blar. Perched on the edge of a chair, my husband anxiously waits for the coming of the little yellow bus. It will take him to his day program. You'll need your boots, hon, it's cold outside. Where's your warm hat? Yes, dear, you need to wear your gloves. A lump forms in my throat as I hear the echo of words spoken long ago. Is the zipper stuck again? Do you need help with your gloves? The little yellow bus rolls to a stop, and I support him up the steps. I'm going to school, he quips to the driver, who helps him find a seat. The doors click shut. I wave goodbye, and the huge lump in my throat bursts into 1,000 tears coursing down my cheeks. Late in the afternoon, I'm the one sitting on the edge of the chair waiting for the little yellow bus, waiting for my husband child. I steady him down the steps. Did you have fun at school today? What games did you play? Did you have a nap? I know the questions well because the wheels on the bus go round and round. What's next? Fiction based on reality by Jane E. Self. What am I going to do? I asked the cat. It had been 2 days since my husband and I had pulled from the campus parking lot, our youngest daughter, Lucy, growing smaller and smaller in the car's rear view mirror. Last of 3 kids to leave the nest, she'd been eagerly anticipating this day for months. I, however, had been dreading it. Dave reached across and squeezed my hand. She's going to be fine. I leaned my face against the cool car window. But will I? Are you crazy? Dave's gaze flashed towards me. This is going to be great. He pulled our car onto the expressway, quiet for a moment as he concentrated on merging with the traffic. The house to ourselves, the fridge to ourselves, no late-night phone calls from her friends, lower hydro bills without all her computer time. His eyebrows arched rakishly. Clothes optional anytime we want. Great. In one fell swoop, I'd gone from full-time parent with its endless demands to full-time bunny. I glanced down at myself. I suppose I should have felt thankful he still found me enticing. For a long time I said nothing. I guess I've been hoping for more. Dave, no doubt lost in his own imaginings of overflowing fridges and frisky romps through the house, had lost track of the conversation. More what? I don't know, more purpose, more meaning, more, your life's been meaningless? I'm not saying that. I had a purpose. I loved being home with the kids. But I'm not a full-time mom anymore. The kids are gone, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. To my horror, scalding tears slid down my cheeks. I swiped them away before Dave noticed. Well, what are you good at? He asked. Great question. I thought for a moment. Laundry? You want to open a laundromat? I snorted, grateful for an idea stupid enough to stop my tears. Then what do you want to do? That's the problem. I'm halfway through my life and I still don't know. Dave hummed thoughtfully, the way he did when he was mulling over an idea. Well, my love, he said finally, don't you think it's time you found out? So those are my chosen samples of a second cup of hot apple cider. I hope that you found something that intrigues you. And I just want to mention that we also have a discussion guide that's just coming out for the book with questions about every one of our 51 stories, poems. There's even a spoken word drama in the book. So